Welcome back to Be the Trader, everyone. I'm excited because today we have a crazy runner, APVO, and I'm going to share with you how you can potentially avoid getting squeezed by a black swan event like we have today. I'm going to share the chart. I'm going to explain how I protected myself, how I shorted it and didn't get myself in a bad situation, and how I avoided it completely today on Friday, the 6th of November. So I want to share this with you. I'm hoping you can take away some lessons and maybe you can share some insight on, maybe what you did that maybe I don't explain, because I'd love to learn more too. So thanks so much, and let's get this episode started. Today I want to share with you APVO, the stock that has blown up tons of accounts, especially right now on November 6th, Friday after hours. Look at my screen here. You'll see that the stock is spiking all the way to $82 from $20 in a matter of minutes. And if you look on the 1 minute chart, look at this parabolic. And the reason I want to bring up this ticker is because it had no news. You can even pull up the ticker right now. Look at the news. There's no news that came out that gives it that reason to just spike. And this is why you need a plan. You need to look at the big picture. You need to look at price action and help that dictate, should you be short this position? Should you be long this position? Should you even touch it to begin with? And what I want to talk about is the only news this thing had, if you go back to the daily chart, the only news this thing had, if you go back to the daily chart, is on the day it actually spiked. It had a clinical trial phase 1, which normally does not do too hot. And most people tend to short phase 1. So this stock did the exact opposite though. We had some huge volume that just squeezed. And then every day we had a weak open, squeeze, a weak open, squeeze, a weak open, squeeze, right? It's not uncommon. Like, you see what this stock does. And granted, I was short this stock on this day, the 5th. So not today, but yesterday on the 5th. And I'll explain why I was short, and I'll explain why I covered, and I'll explain why I didn't touch it today. And I was watching it all day today because it was potential to be one of my A+ setups, an overextension kind of play, especially for short seller. And this is how a lot of short sellers who may be a little bit more flexible with their risk management are going to blow up today because they weren't strict, or they're going to hold and wish that it comes back down. And maybe it comes back down, maybe it doesn't, but more than likely their broker is going to have a margin call and they're going to close their position automatically and they're going to have to take the loss. But let's review APVO because I want you guys to take away some lessons from this. This has happened before, by the way. There's have been other stocks in the past that have done this in the after hours that if you've been trading for a while, the Kodak was one of them. And so how do you prevent this? Well, you can't predict that this was going to happen. You can't predict that we're going to have a squeeze out of nowhere. You just can't predict that. But what you can do is acknowledge that maybe it's not time to be short. Maybe I shouldn't be holding it. Not to mention we're in the middle of the elections. The elections just happened. It's not for certain who's going to be president at this time. But what I will say is it's uncertain, right? There's uncertainty. The market overall is strong. If you look at the overall market, the SPY is what I like to use. Overall, we're in a strong market. This thing has just gone straight up since elections. And it's ridiculous. I mean, just how fast it's going. But it's not ridiculous because you got to pay attention to price action. And that's what we need to focus on. So if you've been paying attention to the market, you've seen a lot of moves just moving like crazy. I mean, look at NIO. We just have this thing just trending crazy right now. And so what I want to talk about though is APVO. APVO is an overextension play. And if you're too easy on your rules, like I just want some overextended to short, then you've probably been shorting this since day one, right? I mean, because this was overextended, $5, $6 all the way to $11.22. You were probably shorting this day thinking it's first red day. It's probably what you were doing. And you probably got squeezed. And then today you're like, oh, first red day. And if you don't notice that this thing's already gapped down once before and squeezed, then this day you're probably going to be shorting the gap down and getting squeezed. So there's one lesson right there. But the second lesson, because I was short that day, and I want to go back. Let's zoom in here. So on this day, we had a gap down, so some people probably short it. And if you look at the big picture, it's not up much. It was probably up like 60 to 70% when it gapped down. So that's not really a play for me. And it also squeezed with huge volume at the last hour of the day, which is concerning, right? I mean, what is going on here? We have a breakout too above the previous pre-market high. And then what happens? We have a gap down, and what do? We hold the pre-market high. It's pretty amazing how support and resistance really works, especially when it works really well in this case. But this is not a short to me, especially when we had a squeeze with huge volume out of nowhere on a phase 1 clinical trial. And it's a low float. I think it's like a 2-3 million float. What did it trade that day? Let's go back on the daily. It traded 31 million shares. That's so many shares. That's so many float rotation. That means there's tons of people in this trade or in this ticker, right? There's tons of people just getting trapped. And what do I mean by trapped? Well, this is what I mean by trapped. But let me show you right here. Let's go zoom in again. So on this day, you might have shorts, you maybe have some shorts sharpen this, think it's going to fade all day, but instead we hold, we never break high day until the last hour, right? And then we just squeeze, then we fade, and people are thinking, oh, we're going to short because we're gapping down from previous close. But this run up was so quick, it's not really a good, in my opinion, a good short. And what happens? They short and they think they're in the right, and then they get squeezed and it holds. We have a little trend building, and then we just squeeze everyone the last couple hours of the day. And then this day, now I did short this day, and I'm going to explain what I did and what I saw, so that way you can see that I wasn't just shorting a gap down setup, because I wanted to see something different, okay? So if we zoom in here on this day, we had a squeeze on the last, my time zone is Central Time Zone, so this is not, if you're Eastern, this is not Eastern time. If you look on this Thinkorswim, it's actually, so it's actually 1:30 Eastern. So in the afternoon power hour, we have a squeeze. Whereas today, on this day, on Thursday, the 5th, we actually did something different. We gapped down, right? Previous closes over here, we gapped down, and I didn't short. But when we got this spike here, I shorted some because we had an early squeezer. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we have an early squeezer. I was shorting right around here. And if I have that chart, hopefully I can share it. But if I don't, sorry, because I just haven't been saving them. But if I do, I will post it here. I think I posted on one of my friends. Anyway, when I shorted up here, and then when it starts to crap out, I started adding to my short right around this candle. The reason I started doing that is because we had it squeezed. It couldn't go green. I think green red was like right above this area, right around the 18, but slightly above it. If you look on this day, red green was $17, okay? And then on this day, when we got the squeeze, we barely went above it. Only $1 above it, and then we failed. So to me, if we're in a squeeze, go green, red, I want to see a powerful squeeze. I want to see something like this day, where we went from $9.45 to $18, which is ridiculous, right? But no, it's not ridiculous after you see what it's doing right now, since I just showed you. But I took a short, and then I was in it planning to hold all day for a fade. I thought we were going to fade all day because this is acting different. We had a gap down, right? And then we spiked, went green, and then we failed and couldn't hold green. And we had the squeeze early rather than the last hour of the day. So I thought we already squeezed out the shorts, the early shorts. But we did not. What happened? I got stopped out. I got stopped out right here at high day. Got stopped out, took my loss, and I was done. I was like, you know what? This is not the difference. This is not the difference maker, right? This is not going to change. There's something I need to find different. There needs to be a different type of situation. Granted, this situation was different from yesterday and it did gap down, but it did go green and fell. That is a different situation but now I need a different trigger. And that made me prepared for today. So today, before we have the squeeze, let me just zoom in here. This day, which is today, I was not interested in shorting this. Why was I not interested in shorting this? Well, I'm going to show you right now. If you look at the big picture, we have a very, very powerful stock. We have a very, very powerful stock. We have a trending stock. Look at that. Trending perfectly. And with that trend, you can even see, I don't even know if you can see a case of that, but yeah, look at that. Beautiful trend. We have a powerful stock. So today, whenever I'm seeing it, I was not shorting. I was not shorting on this run. Now, granted, you could say, oh, you missed out on this big run. But I don't think so. I think I'm waiting for the easy setup. I'm waiting for something that's easy. And yes, it broke high day, and I did notice that. And I was like, oh, it broke high day, but not as strong. So that might be a trigger. However, what I noticed and was keeping an eye on was the big trend line. This is what was important to me. So because that was important to me, I didn't want to short until I saw something at least under that or a different type of price action. And we almost saw that. And what happens? People are maybe short. I guarantee you there's people short thinking, hey, I'm short here because it failed high day break, because it is different, right? We broke high day here, never went back. Broke high day here, held it as support. Broke high day here, we did not hold it. So there's some manipulation here, guys, because this typically could be a trigger. However, this is midday, and I don't like to trade midday. I don't want to short midday because there's a lot of manipulation midday. And then what happens? We come back near last hour of the day. We hold trend, and we barely break it for a second for those who are looking at the big picture, sucking shorts. But then we easily reclaim. And after we reclaim, what happens? We squeeze. We squeeze. And everyone who's short is now underwater dramatically. And so what I want to show you is, why am I not shorting this day? It's because this stock has already tricked me, right? There was a difference. I took it. Didn't work. Now on this day, there was a difference, but it's midday. There's a lot of manipulation, so I don't trade midday. That protected me. There's a rule that protected me. And then big picture, if we look here, every time it goes red, it recovers, goes red, recovers. And bigger picture, we have a strong trend here. So I'm hoping you see these, that at least you're not taking a big position if you are shorting. Like maybe I take a short, maybe you take a short, but if you notice this trend, you might cover in that area rather than just waiting for it to fade all day. Because typically, if you look on the daily, typically, look at this shitty stock. It just goes all the way down. Look at this gap down. Typically, we will see this come all the way back. We may not, but more times than not, we're going to see a big pullback when that pullback comes. And it may come on Monday because we finally get a huge squeeze. And I'm hoping this thing squeezes even higher the following open. But it may not. But I want to share just my thoughts, my process, and what I'm looking at and how I avoided this trade today. Now, I'm not saying if you hit this trade, I'm hoping that you protect yourself. You got out as soon as you can. If I was stuck in this trade, I'd be getting out ASAP. However, ASAP, to be honest with you guys, it might have been up here in the 50s because of how quick it moved. So you're talking losing $20 a share, depending on where you got in. So that could be devastating for people. This is another reason why you don't over leverage. You don't go in bigger than what you can lose. You always account for what may happen, what kind of black swan can happen. If it's a holding support, maybe I shouldn't hold it over the weekend. And why not over the weekend? Another rule is because you don't know if there's going to be news. We don't know if there's going to be any news. And right now, there is no news, but out of nowhere, there could be news that someone knows that we don't know. And that's why there's a squeeze. That's why there's a huge buying pressure. And now we're squeezing all the shorts. And these are nothing but stops getting hit at this 29 level. If we even zoom in here, 29 is where all the stops are, right? So right here. So before, it only took, oh wow. Wow, guys, look at this. It only took, look at the volume. It only took 19,000 shares to create this squeeze because those are stops. If that's not manipulation, I don't know what is. So I hope you got some value from today's episode. Sorry for the sporadic, not a beautiful camera, not a beautiful setup, but I wanted to share this with you all today. Maybe you can take away some lessons and save yourself from another black swan. Thanks. If you're enjoying this type of content, be sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you're notified for future content, especially when I record on a whim, when there's something hot in the market, to give you an idea of why it happened, why it didn't happen, or just to give you different perspective, because that's what it's all about in trading community, giving different perspectives. So thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for future episodes. Take care.